Welcome everyone to the World City Summit. I'm Stephen Pedigo. I'm faculty at the University of Texas at Austin at the LBJ School of Public Affairs. And we've got a really excellent opportunity today to speak with Karen Christensen, esteemed author, community advocate, and editor. Karen and I both are residents in Western Mass in the Berkshires, and so we have an opportunity to chat today in Western Mass. So much better than getting on an airplane or even a Zoom, perhaps. So today we're going to have some opportunity to talk a little bit about the concept of third places, a term that was coined by sociologist Ray Oldenburg in his 1989 really influential book called The Great Good Place. And one of the exciting things about this is that Karen was a dear friend of Ray and has been given the opportunity, or has taken on this opportunity, this challenge to really go back and revisit this book and think through what are third places today, and really look and build upon Ray's work. And so our conversation with y'all today is really going to be centered on that. So Karen, thanks for spending time with me.
It's great to meet you. Great to be here in Great Barrington at Lake Mansfield.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day here. So Karen, maybe for the folks that are kind of joining us, talk a little bit about your work and how you became engaged with this concept of third places, and maybe even just your relationship with Ray a little bit.
I was a young environmental author in London when The Great Good Place was published. And in fact, my first book, Home Ecology, was published that same year. An American publisher bought the rights. And so I went to Colorado to work with them on the American edition. And my editor there had the perspicacity to say, I've just read this book. I think it's going to interest you, Karen. And he thrust it at me one day. And I still have that copy. It changed my life because it made me realize, I learned about third places, but I realized that all the environmental work I was doing, that community was central to any sustainable future, which was what I was working on. So it led me into working on community. And sometime soon after that, as I was working on a new project, I wrote to the author and asked him some questions. And we corresponded for 20 years on and off without ever meeting. Although when I was the editor of the Encyclopedia of Community for SAGE, I asked him to be the social life associate editor. So we corresponded more. But I have all this, it was letters at first, and he would send me clippings, he would send me suggestions. He sent me a lot of book suggestions, really great stuff, just over the years.
Yeah.
And finally in 2012, so we're talking many years later, so that's not quite 20 years. I'm exaggerating slightly. But I finally went down and met him. I thought, I've got to meet this man.
How was the first meeting?
It was so much fun because, of course, we went out to visit his favorite third places. It was quite a festive weekend. So, went to his breakfast place. We went to the Irish bar. We met friends. And we talked and talked and talked. And what I hadn't remembered until shortly before his death at the end of 2022 is I actually recorded an interview with him on my phone then. That's pretty early.
Yeah, it's really early.
But I whipped out my phone. I thought, I need to record some of, you talking about it and where things are going. And so I just whipped up my phone, this sort of fairly rough little video, but it turned up right before his death. And it's one of the only recordings, the only videos of Ray talking, sipping his coffee and
his favorite
chatting and his favorite third. So
that's great.
Yeah. So and I went down several times, and then we stayed in touch by phone and email, and at various points. In fact, in 2012, I was saying you need to do a new version of the book.
Yeah.
He said, I'm too old. And so I asked a few journalist friends if they would take it on, work with him. I couldn't find anyone.
Yeah.
And eventually at some point we just said, okay, we're going to do this.
You're going to do it together.
Yeah.
You'll do it.
Yeah.
So let's step back a little bit. Maybe for our folks that are joining us today, don't know a lot about this concept of third places, or maybe they know a little bit about the concept. You and I were talking a little bit about defining this concept and going back to Ray's original definition. Talk a little bit about the concept of a third space. What makes a space a third space?
Well, there are a lot of people who use the term third place. It's used all over. In
Hmm.
fact, if you Google, and it's usually attributed to Ray Oldenburg,
Yeah.
very accurately. But people are confusing third places with public spaces. They are apples and oranges, horses and zebras.
Yeah.
They are not the same thing. This is a beautiful public space we're in right
But
now.
not a third
It's
space.
not a third place. And third place is also sometimes called a theory or a concept. Ray would dismiss that entirely. It was simply he was giving a label to a common phenomenon that you see across cultures and across history. Third places exist everywhere, but he was the one who saw what was the same about lots of different cafes, barbershops, taverns, pubs, street corners. All these places have the characteristics of a third place, but no one had, given a name to it.
Sure.
And that's what he did that so lit people up.
So if we were going to define that idea of a third place, what is that definition? How would you define that differently from a public place as you described?
Okay, well, there are 7 key points about a third place. And these are kind of ways to identify a third place, not ways to build a third place. That constructing one might be a little
We'll
different.
talk about that a bit.
Yeah, but they are you're on equal ground. He would use the term level. They're leveling places.
Mhm.
Anyone is welcome, of any class, any race, they're a place that everyone can go.
Mhm.
Not necessarily everyone won't necessarily go, but that's important. So they're leveling. They're open, that you can move freely. There's no gatekeeper.
Mhm. There's a flow.
Yes. They are relatively inexpensive. I don't want to say they're cheap, but they're inexpensive, which means they're accessible,
Mhm.
right, to everyone. That's really important. They might have a wide range of prices. Some people think they have to be free. That's not true. Third places typically are not free.
Mhm.
Public spaces probably are, but third places, but the barrier to entry is still
But it's still low. Yeah.
Yes. They're places that are accessible physically. I think walkability is hugely important. This ties in with my environmental work. That's why I think third places are the key to to solving climate change, because
Mhm.
they really force us to think about walkability.
Mhm.
They are places where you talk. Conversation is the main activity. People talk to each other in third places. They don't just cross paths. They're not just physically in the same place. They interact there.
So there's an opportunity to build community
Yes.
and engagement.
So it's really engagement. But often with people, you're not best friends or family. They're often strangers or people you know. There's sometimes kind of what are called sociologists call weak ties.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're-
Happenstance
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, and the random nature of it is what makes it exciting. And the last 2 characteristics, one is that they're regulars. And I've been rewatching some episodes of Cheers, which is something that people often say, "Oh, you mean like Cheers?" I thought, I haven't ever seen all of Cheers, so it's very interesting because the theme song says where everybody knows your name,
Yeah.
and that's the regulars thing. They might not know you really well, but they know your name. And the key point, the final point, is how you feel there. You should feel happy when you walk into a third place, and you should feel kind of on air when you walk out. Your spirits should be lifted
Mhm.
by being there.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit before we got together. We were talking a little bit about how the work has evolved around the idea of a third place, Ray's original idea, and it's really thinking about
Mhm.
how it's evolved today. Particularly, as I think about the impact of like remote work, the idea
Yeah.
of the pandemic. How has has the concept of third places changed over time?
Well, people have talked a lot about it because obviously there's sort of this morphing of home and work. The reason it's third, as you know, is that our first place is home.
Yeah.
Our second place is work. And this is the other place where we also feel at home, where we belong.
Right.
Um, but now there's either this merging or people aren't going to work. But I think one of the mistakes that's being made, that to the detriment of our kind of well-being, is to think that you can have a workplace also be a third place.
Yeah.
Because you shouldn't have any responsibilities when you're in a third place. You shouldn't be on the clock.
Uh-huh.
And if you try to make your co-working space a third place, your office
You still
is
have to do the work,
right
right? There's
there,
still,
right?
yeah.
It needs to. I mean, there's no rules. Third places that can exist almost
Yeah.
anywhere, but you have to have that sense. That's part of the feeling of relax when you go in. You're not on a clock. You're not meeting someone you're not scheduled, and you have no responsibilities
Yeah.
there except to be reasonably congenial.
Yeah, I wonder, like, so as I was telling you, much of
Hmm.
my work is kind of in that economic development, community building space. And as more and more communities are seeing the rise of remote work or some sense of
Yeah.
remote
Yes.
hybrid work, right,
Yes.
is really
Yeah.
where we are. The argument that I know that a lot of folks are making that perhaps maybe today, as communities are thinking about the path forward, this idea of a third place may be more important today than perhaps it ever was. Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah. I think it's just going to change where they are. I've noticed in older books, because I look for third places in everything I read. There was a time when, for instance, and this was very London, which I lived in London for a long
Just
time,
got
so I
back
know
from
that
London.
the commuter thing is that it was really typical when someone left the office that they'd drop in at a pub where they'd meet people who often they only knew there because they worked in an office nearby. They'd hang out for half an hour, have a pint, and then they'd catch the train home.
Hmm.
It was their kind of
It was their exhale moment.
yeah, yeah, and really important. Now, if you're working from home, maybe it's walking down the street to someplace else, but you need to be away. It needs to be your other place. We do need that. And I think it really is going to have a terrible psychological effect if we think we can, I don't know, just stay there by the computer working and then, I don't know, having a quick chat with a friend or something. It's not enough.
Yeah, because we've talked a lot of, I mean, today, you talk a lot about this idea of loneliness in communities, the idea of like, how do you create social cohesion or
Mm.
stickiness? The third place seems like it's going to be really important in terms of
It's really
doing.
important. It feels so good. That's
Yeah,
the thing. If you have a third place, it's just becomes it's important in your life in the way that your home or your workmates are. And it's different. You don't have the same conversations there. When you're at home, got to get to that painting before fall and
yeah,
you know
totally.
all that stuff.
Yeah,
You just go and you do talk about other things and you learn about other people. It's really fun. Now, a lot of people, Americans, will say to me, and Europeans to some extent, they say, oh, third places don't exist anymore. We have to just be virtual or we have to, do this other. And I have discovered, this is one of the wonderful discoveries of working on this new edition, is they do exist. They tend not to exist amongst the better off people who live farther apart, more distant, more private lives.
yeah,
But if you go to lots of countries, I mean, eh, there are third places of all descriptions that exist, and that we can find them here, and we can cultivate them.
yeah. So I know part of the work that you're doing with the book is thinking through how do you take Ray's idea and kind of, I don't want to say modernize it, but let's say bring it to where we are today. And you were talking some about this idea of a playbook and
Yeah.
or some how tos, right? Some principles, perhaps maybe is a way to think of it, design principles. Share a little bit about that. So if communities today are thinking about third spaces or third places, I keep saying spaces, I use that word interchangeably, are thinking about wanting to go all in on trying to create those types of spaces in their community, what are some series of insights or
Hmm.
principles that they should be thinking through?
Well, I
What's
think
that playbook?
right. The really important thing is to first recognize that you can't make a third place. You can't It's not a build it and they will come.
You can't
You
manufacture it.
can't manufacture it. It's much more like gardening
Yeah.
than building.
Oh, okay.
You want to create a hospitable environment, lots of rich soil,
Yeah.
the right, placing it where there's enough sunlight, make sure, there's going to
Yeah.
be enough water. That's what you do to create a third place, because people have to choose to come there. But you can make a place that they're going to want to be.
Right.
And there's a lot of stuff to do. It's very important that people both know where to go in and feel it's open to them. It's also very important they feel they can leave without looking, sort of feeling sheepish or slinking out.
Uh-huh.
There's got to be this flow in and out of the place. That's why sometimes lots of places in the world, streets are where third places develop
Okay.
because of the temperature.
Yeah.
But also that the fluidity.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a building, to get that fluidity can be a little bit of a challenge. But terraces are really good.
Yeah.
That entryway and the way you arrange the tables.
Yeah. Talk about furniture. Like,
Yeah.
furniture makes a huge furniture.
Right. Well, when I go into a coffee shop and I see just row after row of tables for two,
Yeah.
I know that is not a third place.
Right.
It's not designed to be.
Yeah, because it's not designed for people to linger, perhaps, right, or even
Right.
build
And it's just
outside of
like
their
a
networks.
pair or one person on a laptop. And if people lean over and talk to people at the next table, that's kind of unusual.
Because you're in our space,
Yeah.
so to speak, right?
Yeah. So that's really important. You want people to be able to move around. I've noticed in a lot of places that people want to be friendly, if not a third place, but to be open. Libraries, coffee shops, there's this big counter, and it's not like a bar counter, which is fairly low. Like if you go to a pub,
Mm-hmm.
there's a bar counter, there's someone standing behind it, maybe saying hello.
Yeah.
But you go and order a coffee and you're like screened off. Or libraries,
There's a division there
there's a
for sure.
division, not that, and you don't want people to hover over you, but you really, if you go into a third place, it'd be nice if someone looks up and says hello, or at least they don't glare at you. Although in country pubs in England, you may have to endure a glare or two.
Yeah.
To break the ice.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Amanda Burton, the former planner in New York City, said one of the key things from her perspective, about building a great third space is your point about you want to create an environment. It's like when you think about furniture design or furniture placement, it's mixing and mingling. It's having
Yes.
different types of conversation places, different types of furniture. People want to take the chair and maybe move it their own certain way, right?
That's right. And actually, I have always loved Christopher Alexander's point that you should have lots of different chairs. Chairs shouldn't match.
Yeah.
Because he says people are different sizes.
That's true.
So I always think people who think everything should be uniform, it's actually not so friendly. You also want things to look at, because otherwise people get on their phone. They get nervous. But you give them something, either something attractive out the window or things on the wall. And frankly, I found that going downtown and sitting at a bar, if there's a TV, at least, if there's sports on, I make
It's a conversation starter.
It's a conversation starter. So, even though Ray disapproved of any kind of TV in a bar, but sometimes you need something to grease the works. And so, but the actual, like the height of a bar and how accessible the people who are there all the time makes a difference.
So as communities are thinking about this idea of a third place and the concept of it, we talked some about kind of the community benefits, the idea of how you and I can build community. What are some of the economic benefits of third spaces?
Well,
and I ask that question because every time I know that I do work in communities, the elected official or the public official always comes back to the idea, what's the return on the investment?
What's the return?
So what is the return on the investment?
Well, I think of a co-working space I visited in Burlington, and it was absolutely gorgeous. Set, though, away from the downtown of Burlington. And Burlington is a very walkable.
It's very walkable,
right?
Yeah.
But
Great plaza.
You couldn't really walk to this place, and there was nowhere near it. So they set up a kind of restaurant and thing in there. But I think that what you want, the dynamism you get from mixing certain kinds of businesses, right?
Yeah, the
They,
Jane Jacobs, the
right.
streets, the sidewalk ballet, so to
Yes.
speak.
And that's what third places play a crucial role in that. They are the kind of place people come in, go out of, they go there, they stop there briefly, they go to, they are an essential part of the mix because they're different from the other kinds of places. A shop that's purely commercial or the library. Like I think libraries often want to say that they are third places, but they really aren't. That's not really their purpose. But boy, they should have a third place right nearby.
Yeah.
Then, because isn't what you want to have a vibrant community life and a vibrant business, city center, town center, is to have a lot of activity. You want people moving between those places,
Hmm.
not just popping into one.
Yeah. And hugely important today for programming cities and things, particularly after the pandemic, right? I wonder, do third places, is there an informality to them? I mean, is informality a purpose or is it a key defining?
It's really important. So
Yeah.
the when I hear about places that are scheduled,
Yeah.
well, we have this event and that event. It's not that a third place can't have some scheduled events,
Yeah.
like the community pub I talked to. I did a podcast about. They have it's a regular pub. People drop in and have evening, and there's sometimes people turn up with instruments and there's music. Great. But they then at mornings there will be community. I don't know if they have mother and baby or whatever, but various kinds of community ev- groups
Hmm.
will also use this place, and that's also that's practical, sensible, good community use. It gets them familiar with it. But it's not the same thing.
So informality, multi-purpose is this key, right? As well, it seems like to me that's jumping out, perhaps.
Well, they're varied. That's the thing. Third places exist everywhere
Yeah.
in every society and throughout history, and they vary enormously. The bathing houses are really important in a lot of cultures. Iceland,
Hmm.
Japan, China in some cases, but Japan and the Sento is, neighborhood baths. And actually, there were community baths throughout Europe. But the Japanese and the Icelanders seem to be they're top of the list as far as I'm concerned in terms of making it it's where it's really a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah. So tell us, what's your favorite third place? Like, and how does it kind of meet the definition? Talk us through your space and how does it kind of check off those things that we've talked about for the
Well,
last
I've
20, 25
experienced,
minutes?
one of the things that I'm going to be dealing with in this new book is the issue of women in bars,
Okay.
right? Because ever since I first started talking to Ray, he made me feel like I should go and sit at a bar and talk to people, but I never was able to do. I've tried, but it doesn't work out. It's not a comfortable
Sure.
experience. Hasn't been. Um, and I'm not really going out. I'm a morning worker. Going out and hanging out at the coffee shop
Yeah.
is not. Although I do know the gang at the coffee shop here.
Yeah.
Um, I've actually been experimenting here in Great Barrington to find out where.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's been
Yeah.
really interesting because people. I talked to someone here who knows about such things. Said, "Oh, there's not really a third place there," but I find there actually. I think there is, and but that's certainly one of the issues, and this is true for people who are different in any way, who aren't. I mean, third places have in Western society have been very much a white male thing.
Yeah. So as we close out here, we've got about
Yeah,
a few more
yeah.
minutes. Tell us a little bit more. When is the book going to be out? What
Then,
can we expect about the book? Those types of things.
well, I say that what I've discovered is that third places offer the key to solving climate change, loneliness, and political polarization, which I
We
know
didn't
is a
talk
big,
about that. Huge though, especially here in the
huge.
States.
It's a huge issue here, and that is where the book's focus is. My work as an environmentalist will definitely factor in. Certainly, my experience as a woman will factor in, and I'm very much internationalizing it. I've spent a lot of time in China as well as in England, so it'll be a little more diverse. And I've talked to a lot of people in other countries as well. The book will be out. The sequel, The Great Good Place Revisited, whatever. I'm not still
Still working on the
still
title.
refining the title. Will be out in February 2025.
Anything else you want to share with us?
No, except that we all need we all need a third place, and we can we can either find them or make them.
Yeah. Karen, it's great to talk with you.
Great to talk. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah, for sure.